Hi, everybody, and welcome to part 5 of my story. I'm going to pick up where I left off, and that was in the summer of 2016. I talked about that medication that I had just found, that the doctor and I were dosing up, and it was the Prozac, or the generic name is fluoxetine. I started to take courage because I really felt like I could do the things that I wanted to do again, and that I felt like, it was possible to live the life that I wanted. I really took courage, and I started taking on new challenges at this point in my life. I started a new job, working demanding hours. I was working at a hospital. I was working 12-hour night shifts, which was a challenge for me, and many of you know that night shift work can be very difficult on somebody with depression or anxiety. I was happy because I felt like things were getting better. But that didn't mean that there weren't going to be any challenges ahead. And my new job proved to be quite difficult. I really struggled to stay up all night and to sleep during the day, because during the day I very often wanted to go out and do things, but I couldn't, and I didn't see my friends, I didn't see my family very often, and it was proving to be really difficult. And I also was taking my college classes at the time. I was really struggling to keep up with my classes with that full-time night shift work. My classes were in the evening, but even that just didn't seem to do much for me because I'd never had time to study, and my depression seemed to be worse because of these behavioral things that I was doing. During all of this, I also was pursuing a relationship with a particular individual and having a difficult time with that. It was somebody who wanted my love and attention, but also didn't want to really return it in any sort of meaningful way. And that was difficult for me because I'm dealing with the work stress. And honestly, I'm still fresh out of the years of hardcore depression and anxiety that I've talked about. And I still feel like I'm probably a little bit fragile. The depression it got worse, particularly because of the night shift work. And I remember thinking a lot during that year, during 2017, the life's got to get easier. And I often quoted the song to myself. I know I talk about songs often, but this one is from Imagine Dragons, and it's called Not Today. And it goes something like this: it's got to get easier, oh easier somehow, 'cause I'm falling. Oh, easier and easier somehow, oh I'm calling, and it isn't over unless it is over. I don't want to wait for that. It's got to get easier and easier somehow, but not today. And life continued to be a grind throughout the rest of that year. I ended up having to quit that job that I was working at the hospital because of the detriment it had on my health, and particularly the detriment it had on my studies. I began to have some anxiety symptoms again toward the latter end of 2017. I was having heart palpitations. I was not sleeping at night. I felt like the Prozac was still helping, but it just wasn't cutting it at the time. And that's why I needed to make such, lifestyle changes, such as quitting that job, working in the evenings and throughout the night. And I had to make some relationship choices and ended up choosing to cut off that person that was causing the difficulties and stresses for me. But I also told my doctor that I felt like I needed something more. And at this point, I had a new doctor, somebody who was unfamiliar with me and my case. The doctor that I had previously seen had ended up retiring. So this new doctor decides to try me on a medication that I hadn't tried before, and it was called hydroxyzine. And what it is basically a powerful antihistamine. It's similar to Benadryl or diphenhydramine. that people use often for sleep and to relax and to be calm. And I started taking this medication on the daily, and as I took it, I felt like it was just making me really tired, and slowly we lowered the dose down to about as small as you could get. I thought, okay, well, I'm in a good place. I started school again that fall and was working through things and seemed to be doing okay, but I just never felt like I was felt normal again. During this whole period, I still never felt quite as good as I did before all of the anxiety happened. That there was still something missing. There was something up, and I needed to figure out what it was. And one conclusion that I came to after about a year of taking that hydroxyzine, that was actually making my daytime tiredness symptoms worse. And it was also presenting with some body aches and muscle aches and pain. And I had days where I had to just go home from class early to just lay down because I was just hurting so much. And I never particularly knew what it was, and I had suspected the medication for a long time. But I was afraid to stop it because I felt like it was helping so much with the anxiety. But ultimately, I did quit that medication and started to feel some relief from the daytime tiredness and the muscle aches and pains. But the anxiety did return. It's still kind of like it was before. I've got that Prozac in there helping. I got maybe 50% of it managed. And I think, okay, well, now what? And at this time, it was spring of 2018. And I was in a pathophysiology class. As part of that class, we were supposed to write a research paper that semester. And I chose the topic of why medications such as ketamine, which are NMDA receptor antagonists or modulators, depends on which one you're looking at particularly, but I wondered why they worked and why they relieved depression and anxiety, because it's kind of a controversial treatment that people do when other things seem to not work. So I did this paper, and I found out some very interesting things. What I discovered is that ketamine actually mimics a natural molecule that is inside of our bodies. I'll talk more specifically in the next video about what that molecule is and how it helped me get me back on track and feel normal again. Take a listen to part 6 and I'll explain what it is I found and a little bit about how it works. And then in another video I'll talk very specifically about the neurology and the biology of how it works and why I think it's been so effective for me and why it's something that you should explore. And I really hope today you found something useful in this video. I hope you know you're not alone. I hope you found something that's uplifting and good. And I hope you'll tune in to part 6 to hear about what I discovered and how it's helped me get pretty much back to normal. I'm doing really well a couple of years later. So take a listen to part 6.